Hello, it's Philip Taylor speaking from Richmond Green Chambers in London. This morning I'm looking at a particularly interesting book. It's one that I found very interesting to read. I'm delighted to see it. It's come to us from Wildey, Simmons and Hill Publishing. This is a special book and I think extremely helpful for practitioners. The title of the book is The Law of Rights of Light. It's been written by Jonathan Carus, Queen's Counsel, and there's technical help by way of some appendices from Point 2 surveyors. I found this a very useful book because it's a small book, but it's an area of law which can cause a lot of problems. Now, my wife and I have reviewed this work, and Elizabeth and I came up with a title for our review, An Important Practitioner Text in an Area of Much Neighbour Dispute on the Emotive Subject of Rights of Light. Now, there are other books available which I have reviewed in this area as well. Each one has its own relevance, but this one I think better than anything else. And the reason for it is I found it easy to read. There is the front, there's the spine, and there's nothing on the back. It's a hardback, you can see from that. It runs to just under 300 pages. There is the index at the back. It's very nicely laid out and very, as I say, very easy to read. There's the front page there. And you've got some detail there. And then after that, there's a nice dedication to his family. And then after that, we have the contents. You have a preface and then the various chapter headings dealing with all the issues that probably may come up or might be something you need to consider either at a conference or when you're dealing with a particular problem concerning light issues. And there right at the back is a series of appendices, and as I say, you have remedies which are very important part of the whole area there. Do read the preface. I found the preface very helpful indeed. And then we've also got some figures, a list of figures such as the Walden diagram and so forth, distribution of daylight, and therefore a very technical area which will be directly relevant to your expert should you need expert witnesses in a particular dispute. There's the table of cases there, quite a few cases listed. Some of our old favourites are there from our days as students, then tables of legislation, UK and European, there's SIs as well, statutory instruments, and then we get to chapter 1, the legal nature of a right of light. You've got paragraph numbering and you've got footnoting, and going all the way through you can see how it's structured. There's the paragraph numbering again going in the middle of the book, and some footnoting as we run through. And then the book runs through in its normal way. The appendices are very helpful. There are extracts from the Town and Country Planning Act and so forth. And there is really everything you really should need to know in one convenient book. And it's useful to do that because there are some obviously much more detailed commentaries available. But this one I think is very effective, certainly for the beginnings of any major problem. And let us face reality. Today there are very large numbers of neighbour disputes involving rights of light, rights of way and so forth. And one of the problems is the sheer cost of litigating and the fact that a lot of people cannot get on with each other, and that is in itself a problem, plus the litigation in person, litigant in person issues, which can quite often arise now because of, as I said, the money involved in trying to defend oneself or assert one's rights. So what do we say about the book? As I say, I'm grateful to Wildey, Simmons and Hill for this title. We say this, a number of books have appeared recently on the emotive subject, it is emotive, of rights of light, and this one by Jonathan Carus, Queen's Counsel, stands out to us as the best of the recent publications. Wildey, Simmons and Hill have surpassed themselves this time in the complex and exciting area of easements, which the author rightly says is often treated warily by land lawyers. Well, I'm a land lawyer. I always treat everything warily when it involves land because it's about money. Now, I do understand what the author says, but if you like easements as I do, it's a fascinating area to be involved in. Covenants as well, of course. Jonathan Carus gives us a new, short and comprehensive treatment of the controversial topic of rights of light in about 300 pages by showing that they are simply just another legal subject, albeit one which can be the subject of so many neighbour disputes. And the 11 chapters prove the point very well. The title explains how rights can be established, what constitutes an infringement of those rights, and what remedies can be provided for the infringement of the rights themselves. And it's a rare gem, in my view, for its brevity, because he gets straight to the point. It also considers in highly practical detail how claims may be defended and rights overridden using the mechanism under the Town and Country Planning Act, section 237, which will be of interest to the growing band of litigants in person. And I do advise any litigants in person, please go and see a properly qualified solicitor or barrister if you've got a problem. This is not an area that you should really try to embark on without thinking very seriously of the implications, because, as I've indicated earlier, it's very expensive. Carus also sets the law in its wider context, showing that despite the technicalities which arise, there are no legal problems with which a competent lawyer cannot grapple. Such an approach would be a genuine relief, we think, to many practitioners who often feel confounded by this subject, although it's not as difficult as many perceive it to be. I remember one solicitor saying to me, "Oh, last time I did an easement was when I was doing my landlaw paper." Well, that's true, but you'd be amazed at what can crop up sometimes when you have a client appearing and asking for help. And as I've indicated before, it is an interesting and I think an important, perhaps developing area, as we have a much larger number of property owners in the country, and we do have these disputes. Now, what we found of particular importance is that the title benefits from the two important technical appendices which have been written by Point 2 surveyors. The first explains how light is measured, and the second how losses are valued. And again, those two criteria are very, very important, or criteria, the criterion for each. These appendices also explain the limits of current methodology. Now again, I think that's very important because you could well be relying on expert evidence, but they are, I think, invaluable as a first-line resource for advice, and of course these limits leave current methods ripe for reconsideration by the courts. The law of rights of light, therefore, is both a welcome and an essential addition to the shelves of lawyers, surveyors and other property professionals. And as the author says in his preface, quote, "Some of the wariness of lawyers can perhaps be explained by the complex ways in which light and its loss have been measured, which we consider to be one of the greatest strengths of this excellent edition from Wildey, Simmons and Hill." And I'm grateful because they've got a series of books in these areas which are directly relevant to us as practitioners, and they make our lives a lot easier, so thank you to the publishers. Let me conclude by saying that the appendices provide us with the tools with which to ask intelligent questions of their technical witnesses, and will be of, I think, special help to counsel. They also show some light, if we can put it that way, on some of the difficulties of the current methods which surveyors, as our expert witnesses, might face, and they suggest how practice in this area may develop in the future. And to us, as specialists in easements and covenant cases, this work, I feel, is invaluable for neighbour disputes, which remain on the increase. So thank you very much to Jonathan Carus. And the law is stated as at the 1st of January 2016. Quick look at the book again to end. There's the front page. There's the spine. Just opening it, I'll open it at the back again. You can see the index. I have actually used this book already in my practice, and I found it very helpful. This is the centre of the book, Remedies, and it's got quite a lot of case law. It isn't overburdened with case law. It's got Coventry and Lawrence, which is, of course, a well-known authority. Now, it isn't overwhelmingly heavy on cases, and I think that's the light touch, which I rather liked. And as I say, going to the front of the book again, you've got a nice statement right at the beginning of what the nature of a right of light is. Well, thank you to all concerned. It's an excellent book, and I'm very grateful to now have this one available to us for our work in advising clients in this, what is actually quite a tricky area. So thank you to all. Bye-bye.